All right, I believe I am live in the startup VA community. So excited for this chat today. A big welcome, Teagan.
Yay, thanks for having me.
I'm just going to check this audio. Yeah, it is working. All right, we'll see if anyone is going to join us live. If you are here with us, say hello. Let us know where you are tuning in from. Teagan here is one of my clients inside the VA Mastery program. So, Teagan, I believe you joined us back in Feb this year and recently
Yeah.
re-signed. So you're staying on with us again, which we love. But I think the thing with you was, you were able to secure your first client very soon into your launch, which is fantastic. And I wanted to invite you in today to sort of share more about your experience getting started as a virtual assistant. We, of course, had our Startup VA Challenge over the last 3 nights. And, it is very daunting, I suppose, for somebody that is thinking about getting started. So it'll be good to hear more about what this actually looked like for you and to really get perspective from someone that's navigating it right now.
Yeah.
So, ladies, we do love to, on the live stream, we do love to these to be as interactive as possible. So please do jot down any questions that you might have for myself or Teagan, of course, and we will be here to answer any of those. All right, Teagan, let us get started. So if you want to start, sort of share a little bit about who you are and about your VA business, and we can go from there.
Yeah, for sure. I'm an allied health VA, specifically in like the behind the scenes kind of stuff. So I manage a lot of inboxes, a lot of diaries, schedules, patient communication, invoicing, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, all the behind the scenes. Before I was a VA, I was upper management in a virtual reception business, so kind of similar, but I was managing a team that was doing it for me, and that's kind of where I fell in love with the allied health industry and really
Mm.
working with it. Yeah, made the change to do the allied VA business nearly a year ago now. Like I was starting to think about it this time last year and was kind of like, oh, someday in the future, I'd love to do this because I was really drawn to the idea of not having that rigid 9 to 5. Like I knew that I wanted that at some point in my life. And I was
But
also
you were
struck.
still working remotely, weren't you?
Yeah, yeah. So all of my work, like even when we were in the office, it was mostly just my boss and I. So, and
Yeah.
he wasn't here all the time either. Most of my career, I am used to having my team be virtual anyway. So
Mhm.
that kind of transition to working by myself and working from home, I'm like, today it's just me and the cat. So he may pop in at some
Yeah,
point.
love it.
And my partner's here on Friday, so that makes it a little bit more of a relaxed and office casual kind of vibe. So getting to have a banter over the coffee machine.
Yes.
Yeah, I was really used to that. So used to working independently, working on my own, that kind of stuff. Um, and yes, about this time last year, I was really drawn to the whole like working remotely, working on my own, working for myself. I think there was in the previous business I was working for, I was really feeling the frustration of not being able to make changes to impact the business in a way. Like
Yeah.
I could see things that I could do that could help, and not having a voice heard in that kind of thing. So how came the time to make that change, and I was recommended your program from a friend and a previous colleague and strongly recommended it, and I was like, yeah, okay, that's kind of seems perfect. And it was just a really right time to make that leap. And so I left my corporate job in December last year and then dove into this program in February, and gave myself a little bit of time just to kind of enjoy not being in the workforce.
Yeah.
I've been 17 years for the same job, so I was well due some long service kind of leave and time myself.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so kind of, yeah, just hit 6 months of being launched, which is really exciting. I think I did that last week. So yeah,
That is
it's
so
good.
exciting. And I know we're
Yeah.
much more about your launch and the strategy that you adopted to gain work very soon. But I love that you mentioned there, even though working remotely in the virtual reception company, it was that lack of freedom and flexibility, right? Because I'm assuming
Yeah.
you would still have to be sort of chained to your desk 9 till 5, even though you were working from
Yeah.
home. So you didn't really get that work-life balance. And that's something that I know, from knowing you now, that that's something that you really value.
Yeah, it was very much a challenge point for me. I mean, having worked there for so long, and I did not have the best boss. And he had, when COVID hit and we all started working from home, he had a lot of trust issues about that for the entire team. So, you'd have to be clocked in well before your start time. And, if you don't respond fast enough, like he thinks that you're not working properly and stuff like that. So there
Mm,
was a lot of rigid rules around that, which, surprisingly, I had more flexibility when we were in office. And
yeah,
I think there's a big challenge with that being stuck in an environment where we have kind of a toxic environment. So
yeah,
I think that was a big impact as to why it took so long to start this. And it impacted confidence in my ability to do this as well, which was a big part
yeah,
in my challenges in doing this. Yeah. So
yeah,
yeah, it was a really big change. And it was really important to me. Like, if I wanted to have a medical appointment, I didn't want to have to ask someone to do that.
yes,
If in the future we do have a family and have kids, I wanted to be able to do something around them and not lose my career or not have to put them in daycare 9 to 5, Monday to Friday kind of thing as well. To even if it did end up being that way, I wanted to have the option and that flexibility. You still have to
yeah,
do, but I mean, there's been many times where I've had a half day because I've got a family thing on, or I've spent some time
yeah,
with my grandmother, and I've come back after the evening and done a little bit of work then. And it really does put that balance in where you can pick and choose within reason your hours and what you want to do. And whilst I think being self-employed and being your own VA has its wealth of challenges. I mean, there are definitely some difficult points to it, and you do have to show up for yourself every day. I think that there are so many great rewards to it, and my stress and anxiety levels through doing this as my career have dropped significantly. And it's been a great boost to my own confidence in being able to make that change, make those decisions, have them follow through and have them work and get
yeah,
regular feedback from a client that you're doing great work, and that resulting in another client and another arrangement and ongoing. Like, my first client is still a client now, nearly
yes.
6 months later. And
Oh,
that's
I'm getting goosebumps. I love this.
yeah.
I love it. And you're right, it's all a choice, right? The great thing
Yes.
about becoming a virtual assistant is you get to work your own hours, you get to choose the clients that you work with,
Yes.
you
Yeah.
get to make an impact.
Yeah.
Um, so I love that you mentioned that. And you did talk a little bit about a challenge there, which brings me to my next question.
Mhm.
What were, like, starting something new, and you've mentioned 17 years in the same job,
Yeah.
and then resigning and going all in on your VA business? Like, there must have been some fears around that. Talk us through
Yeah.
what those fears were before you started.
Yeah, I mean, so many fears and challenges. I don't think challenges is the right word. I don't think there were many challenges there. I think that I was my biggest challenge, and that
Yes.
was impacted by my fears. One of the things that I wasn't really worried about was getting clients. And I don't think that's talked about enough necessarily. Like, that I was looking for ongoing regular clients, so I didn't need hundreds and thousands of clients. I'm not looking to get heaps of people across the door. I only needed 3 to 6 people across
Yep.
Australia. And so that was a really good reassurance for me of, like, you don't need many, like, you're not asking for the world. You just need 3 or 6 clients that want to work with you. And surely there's going to be that. So I kept reminding myself of that when I had my doubts. Um, I was worried about had my fears about how quickly I could find a client. There was, definitely financial issues there. But I think that the biggest challenge that I had was doubting my own skills and experience.
Mm,
As I said, I didn't have the healthiest work environment that I was coming from. And I was very conscious that my career was through a small business. And whilst I was very, very good at the things that I was taught how to do, I was taught how to do those for my particular role. So I was worried that there were gaps in my knowledge that I wasn't aware of. And then I might be selling a service that I couldn't deliver. I would go out,
yeah.
into the workforce and be like, actually, no, that's not how you do that. You needed to have done that differently. And I'd have egg on my face. So that was a big worry for me. Um, So I think that's still something that I struggle with today. And the biggest thing has just been reminding myself of like, hey, I'm doing it. I was successful. You know, I got my first client within a couple of weeks. I take all the positive feedback that clients give me. And I did that before I left my previous job as well. Like I was very anxious about starting out myself. So I found all the positive feedback that they'd ever given me and I put that in a personal folder so that I could refer back to that,
Yes.
just to remind
Yep.
myself of like, you can do this, you are capable of doing this. So yeah, I think that was my biggest hurdle was myself and having
Yes.
faith in my ability and being able to follow through in that. And you know, my anxiety at the time was quite high. So I was getting a lot of flight or fight kind
Mm.
of response and ended up freezing. So yeah, it's something that I
I
do struggle.
often I often say, like, and I said this throughout the challenge, it's kind of like often our biggest struggle isn't our competition, it's actually what goes on inside here. Like you can
Yeah,
be given all the strategy, you can be, get everything set up, but if there's going to be self-sabotaging behaviors or any sort of beliefs, they're going to stop you from taking that action, which is going to
yeah,
stop you from getting the results that you want as well. So I loved that you mentioned that
yeah,
there as well.
100%. Yeah. And I think that it was really refreshing to go from a corporate world where you did want numerous clients and you were worried about the competition,
Mhm.
to then go into this where I'm working for myself and I don't view other VAs as competition. I don't
No.
think of that. I don't think of myself as having competition, because I'm not going to be the right fit for every business, and every business is not going to be the right fit for me. So someone is going to be better suited to a person. Like if we don't gel, we don't gel. And
Yes.
it's very personal, this. So I really don't think of it as competition. And I think of the other VAs really as the community and the support. And that has been the best thing that I've taken away from it, is that sense of community and having people in the other industry reach out and connect and being able to offer support in areas that I'm weak in, and then vice versa. And so, yeah,
Mm. And
it's really nice and
something you
rewarding.
mentioned, yeah, definitely. And something you mentioned was around, having gaps in your
Mm,
skill set. And that's where, upskilling, learning.
yeah,
I often say like YouTube, Google, tutorials on websites can be like your best friend when you're a
yeah,
virtual assistant. So being that lifelong learner and delving into, yeah, your personal development is going to be key as the
yeah.
industry continually grows and as, clients, um, yeah, like want new skill sets as well, for sure.
Yeah,
Yep.
and like the skills aren't set and forget kind of thing. Like I came into it with a certain level of skills, but as you said, the industry is going to change. So I feel now I have a lot more motivation to apply those, to apply myself to learning those new skills and keeping up to date with it and a more hands-on
Yeah.
approach. And I'm really passionate about making the life easier for the practitioners that I support. And if that means that I spend a little bit of time on YouTube or a little bit of time in a group and learn some extra things,
Yeah.
then absolutely. And I love being able to ace it. Like that's the best thing. When I get a client message me and say, oh my God, that would have taken me weeks to figure out, or I had no idea how to do it, and it was kind of easy for me, then that's when I'm like, oh yeah, no, I'm doing the right thing. This is the
Yeah.
right business for me. This, I'm in the groove,
Yeah.
So yeah.
Definitely. Now, you were able to onboard a client quite soon. You mentioned a couple of weeks from launching.
Yeah.
Talk us through the strategy that you adopted that worked really well to gaining traction.
Yeah, perfect. So I was pretty lucky. I was able to secure a client, I think 6 or 7 weeks out from like officially opening the doors.
Yep.
Did have a challenge where I wasn't able to rely on my existing network due to problems with my previous employer. He hadn't paid me out all my entitlements yet. So that was about 4 months after I was able to launch that I was able to do that. So I
Yep.
really threw myself into social media,
Yes.
particularly Instagram. That was really where I focused myself, and that was a huge upskill because marketing is not my forte.
Yeah.
So that was a big learning curve. But I give myself a deadline. I think it was the week before my deadline of like, okay, now I start to panic about whether or not this is the right decision. And I got a discovery call. And the discovery call, she signed up that same afternoon and she's been a client ever since. It's been great. So
Yeah.
I really focused on making sure I was putting out consistent content, that it was all looked like me. So
Yes.
I picked my colors and I really wanted someone to be able to look at my marketing and go, oh, that's from that brand. And, they stand out when someone's scrolling through the feed.
Yeah.
And one of the things I really did was I gave myself a target of finding 5 accounts in an industry that I wanted to work with, 5 accounts per day, 25 a week, and I was just following them. So
Yep.
that was really helpful. That's exactly how I found my first client. She'd been thinking about getting help. She saw that I'd followed her, opened up the account, went, oh, I like the branding, booked in a call, and the rest is history.
Yeah.
I will say for this strategy, like if I could go back, one thing that I would do differently would be more discerning in who I'm following. I
Mm.
did have a situation where I followed someone in the same sort of thing, followed them, they'd been thinking about getting help, they booked in a discovery call, and I had just been like finding anyone in the industry and following them and following, like going numbers rather than quality. And
Yes.
it was someone that their messaging I didn't gel with. Like it actually was in quite a strong opposition to mine. And through the discovery call, I was like, oh, you are not the right fit for me. And I ended up deciding not to support them. But we could have saved us both a lot of time if I'd been a little bit more discerning and looked at their messaging before I picked. Because I do think that's one of the best things about this industry is being able to pick and choose who you work with.
Yes. Yeah,
And
definitely.
yeah, and the most rewarding I've had is supporting someone whose messaging I align with and what they
Mm.
do resonates with me. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's the rewarding I would say about that.
Yeah,
But
I
then,
know with Instagram, like quickly while we're talking about the quality over quantity, so many people can get fixated on those vanity metrics, we like to call it, where it's like, oh, the amount of followers, the amount of people that are liking or engagement, or I'm getting a
yeah,
lack of people that are liking and engaging. And I can't
yeah,
tell you how many people I've worked with that have never engaged in my content. And I'm like, who are you? Like, I didn't even know that you existed and you've
yeah,
joined like the program or reached out to me. So you're right,
mm,
like it's not about the quantity, it's about the quality. And social
yeah.
media is social. So blocking
Mm.
that time out in your calendar and really prioritizing engaging with accounts if social media is going to be a part of your strategy for sure.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
used to do that, like, I'd give myself the time, like, oh, I'm gonna have lunch now. So, whilst I'm sitting here having lunch, I'll scroll through and I'll engage and I'll like a couple of posts and I'll put a couple of comments here. And that's when I'll find my 5 accounts per day. And because it's not something that I gravitate to, it's not something that comes naturally to me and social media engagement, I'm an introvert. So that also doesn't gravitate towards me in my personal life.
Mhm.
By giving myself a metric, putting it in my calendar and being like, hey, 12 to 12:30 pop in, I want you to find 5 accounts, and like giving myself that task did
Yeah.
really help. And then I also by doing it earlier in the day, I'm like, now it's done and I can move on and I don't have to think
Yeah,
about it
exactly. What do
until
they say? Like
tomorrow.
do the hardest task of the day in the morning straight away.
Yeah, it's the
Yeah.
eat the frog idea. So you eat the frog, so you're done with the worst task, and then everything gets
Yeah.
easy. Yeah.
And we were
Um,
talking in the challenge, there were so many introverts that were in the challenge too. And a question was like, can an introvert create success as a VA? And it's like, the VA industry is filled with introverts,
yeah,
right? The
yeah,
fact we can just work from home and work from our computer and,
yeah.
not have to work with a million clients, but just a select few that we really get along with.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, it's just figuring out what works for you. Like I'm never going to be presenting on a stage in front of people. That's not my interest at
No,
all. I like want to be working from home in my comfortable clothes. So
exactly.
yeah, but it's still like there is still importance to it and reaching out that connection. And I think that I didn't appreciate how significant that was. I think I appreciated the theory, but not how much effort there would have to go into that to
Mm,
be putting my brand out there before I started.
yes.
But it is also like reap the most rewards. Like that's where I got my first client. That's where I still get a lot of my engagement from. And now that
Mm,
I am able to rely on my existing network, that's where I found a lot of recommendations through word of mouth.
yeah.
But I still value that social media. Like it still got me my first client. It still gets me the most engagement. But it's
Yeah.
still
And
the hardest
it
thing.
is, it is. But I feel like once you get that one or two clients, it builds that confidence up. And then you're like, oh, it's actually working.
Yeah.
Because when it's not working, that's where people retract. And that's where I
Yeah.
see a lot of VAs that are just starting. They're like, well, I've been posting, nothing's happening for 2 weeks.
Mhm.
Maybe this isn't right for me. And
Yep.
it's like we're naive to think by just sharing content that that itself is going to attract people. Like you need to be going out there and actively building connections and prioritizing that relationship building for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
100%. 100%. Yeah.
Um, and on hindsight, besides the Instagram that you mentioned in terms of, being
Yeah.
more focused on reach out for socials, would there be anything that you would have changed the way that you put yourself out there or launched in those early days?
Yeah, I mean, I would have done it earlier in two senses. Like should have done it years ago. Should have done it years ago when I was first thinking about this. But I also wasted quite a bit of time faffing about making sure things were perfect.
I was about to say,
Uh,
yes, that's so many of my clients.
yes, yes. And like I was pretty good, but in hindsight, I could have been better. Like I had this idea of like, great, I'm going to launch. I've done a bit, a couple of weeks of social media. I'm going to get clients like almost. There was no one knocking at my door for my services. I still needed to build that engagement, make sure people were aware of me. So, I was too worried about what my service agreements look like. I was too worried about what my proposal templates look like before I even hit go, you know.
Yeah,
Um, so if I could do it again, I think that I would have had all my business fundamentals done, like my insurance and my branding, like had a presence online, but I would have hit go and then perfected that because
yes.
I've done so many changes to it since then as well. Like there are so many different versions. That first version is not your final version. You can have multiple changes to it, multiple additions, and you can do it at the same time. Like I was kind of twiddling my thumbs in a little way after I'd gone live because I'd done all of that kind of work before I hit go
Mhm.
live, and then I still didn't have client work. So I could have
Yeah,
done a little bit earlier with the go live, played with my documentation, played with
behind the
all
scenes.
things
And that's what
behind
I
the scenes.
recommend. It's like,
Yeah.
and I often say it's never too early to start
Mm.
sharing about the fact that you're starting and
Yep.
perfecting the services guide, the client agreement, looking into CRMs, creating the website when you don't even
Yep.
have clients yet. Like, I feel
Yep.
like a lot of people focus on the client management stuff before they've actually got a client.
Yep.
But it's just pushing go and putting yourself out there and
Yep.
focusing. And it's often like when you do get a client reach out, it's kind of like, oh, it's kind of that kick in the butt. All right, now I
Yeah.
actually have to get all this
Yeah.
sort of stuff
Yeah. Yeah.
together.
And it was the sort of thing as well. Like I had done my like proposal because it's part of the program. So I'd done it like months before.
Yeah.
And I was ready to go way earlier. And then I had my first discovery call and I opened up at the proposal. I'm like, oh, I'm not happy with it because I've had so many things I'd involved in the business as well. And I'm already still going to make changes and tweaks before I send it through anyway,
Yeah.
because I've now got this experience and I've really finessed like what my messaging is and I've discovered what I'm on, what I want to tweak. So I'm already ready for version 2 anyway. So
Yes,
why I've just like waited and been ready and been clear about me. I could save myself so much time. So much time.
absolutely. And I can see some of these comments looking down at my phone here. If you see me looking down, ladies, check out those well organized shelves.
Uh,
Teagan, we're talking about that before we went live.
Yes,
Love
my
it.
virtual background so that you
Virtual
can't see the
background.
actual chaos that is my office. It is my office that I share with my partner, and it is our spare room as well, and a bit of a dumping ground for everything that doesn't fit in the rest of the house. So yeah,
But that's the
the rest
thing,
of
it
the house
doesn't need
might
to be
look like this.
perfect, does it? Doesn't need to be perfect. Nicola, so me. Tina, I think that is going to be my problem. Yes, perfecting.
Mm,
Kayleen, that's currently my problem, wanting to perfect everything
yeah,
before starting. And I feel like it's kind of sometimes you got to put the cart before the horse. Like there's never
yeah,
going to be that perfect time. And as you've said, even when you think that you've perfected everything, when you start, you go
yeah.
back
And
and
you make changes.
refine. Yeah.
Yeah. The only thing that I don't regret doing first was my website. And that
Yes.
was because just how my brain works. So I
Mm,
had an idea, like I've been working on business websites for years. So I had an idea of like what kind of pages I wanted. And then by filling in that content and figuring that out, it really gave me a lot of clarity about my brand, about my offering, about how I want to present myself. So that was actually kind of a thought exercise for me in getting that clarity. So that's
Yeah.
the only thing that I don't regret doing first. And
Yeah.
that's may just be for me and how my brain works.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, that was really helpful
Well,
for
I
me. And
suppose by creating the copy of the About Me and the service
mm,
offerings page, it is going to bring that clarity, isn't it?
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly that. Yeah. So it
Yeah.
really helped me focus that and streamline it. And then I was able to take a lot of that copy and bring it through to my proposal, and then everything all kind of aligned. And yeah, so that was the
Yeah.
only thing that I did find really helpful to do in advance. But everything else I could have done after I was live,
Yes.
figured it
But
out.
coulda, woulda, shoulda. It's always the
Yes,
way, isn't it?
it all worked out well in the way.
Yeah, it did. Now, of course, you are a current client of mine inside VA Mastery. So I would love for you to sort of talk us through if anything surprised you the most as part of that process, or what has been
Hmm.
your biggest takeaway being part of the program?
I think the community, that's been the biggest thing for me. There was a bit of a worry about launching the VA business and like losing colleagues and losing people that would understand what your work is and that kind of thing. But the community that I found, they're
Mm,
so friendly. The amount that I have learned from people that are in different industries or even doing different things, like people doing the marketing behind the scenes for the VA, whether it be their questions that they ask in the workshops or whether it's about just their experience. I really love it. I have had people from the community reach out and offer support when they've heard that I've struggled with something. I've had people just reach out to say, hey, we're in the same community and let's be friends and that kind of stuff.
yeah.
And it's just been amazing, absolutely amazing. Really heartwarming to have as well. And then like just supports all the beautiful work that you've done in the modules and the training as well. Like the modules that you've given, it has made everything so easy to read, easy to understand, really get clarity of what I could have done. And like there are things that I'm sure I could have figured out on my own, but it would have taken so much longer and it would have done a lot more trial and error. It would have been so much more stress and anxiety. And to just have your guidance on how to do it and to do it right and to do it well and see other people succeed in it has really given me the vision and the inspiration to apply it myself and then see the results as well. So yeah,
Yeah,
that's probably the
definitely.
biggest thing. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Thanks for sharing that. Which brings me to the next piece then. What advice would you give someone that is on the fence about getting started as a VA?
I mean, my main advice is that you can do it. You can definitely do it. I think that you need to be prepared that there is work involved into it. So it's not easy plug and play, but the reward you get on the other side is fantastic. Like you get your freedom, you get your flexibility, you also get a massive boost to your confidence. Um, I would say to as well for their advice, like make sure that you're planning ahead for your goals and what you want to achieve. And then I think like one big piece of advice that really resonates with me personally is be really super clear on your business finances and your business expenses.
Mm,
There are challenges and risks in self-employment. And so make sure you give yourself a safety net. So that's my big thing. Like for me personally, when I was structuring my pricing, I added a little bit of a buffer to it. And that certain
yes.
percentage that goes into a safety net for me. So that if I do lose a client, I'm not without a paddle. I do have my self-support.
Mm,
Because it does happen, and it's not usually a reflection of your service or you, or anything can happen in their business.
yeah.
Um, and don't forget about your super.
Yeah,
So
and I think that's the great thing about like investing in a startup program, whether it be VA Mastery or
yeah,
another, but
yeah,
it's the managing the business
yeah,
that you get to learn because we don't learn this stuff in
mm,
school. And if you don't know anyone in business or it can be
yeah,
difficult to apply it to yourself. And you're right, like the pricing, ensuring that it is in line with,
yeah,
your goals, your capacity, but also ensuring that your obligations are included and incorporated
yeah,
into that, like tax, super,
yeah,
annual leave, all of those
yeah,
things for
yeah,
sure.
exactly. It's something that I feel like it's not talked about too often. I think there's a big stigma about not talking about finances and money and stuff
Yeah.
like that. And it's something that I feel really passionate about, aside from the allied health. But yeah, making sure that you're contributing to your own super, making sure that you are setting aside that money and you're budgeting that into your pricing. So it's not just, well, I want to see this in
Absolutely.
my bank account. This is the amount
Yes.
within there. It's like, okay, well, yes, but you're going to have to take money out of that to cover your tools that you use, your business registrations, your website registrations. You're going to have to do your insurance and all that kind of stuff. So just be really clear about that when you build your pricing. Um,
Yes.
and then I think the other thing as well is if you pick a tool, you don't have to stick with it forever. So
Yeah.
find a tool that works for you and is going to make life easier for you. So for me personally, like as an example, like I use an accounting software that takes care of all of my tax and my super, and it automatically generates invoices and it's a small fee and all that kind of stuff. But it means that I don't have to worry about it. So I'm never going to forget to invoice a client. I'm never going to have to worry
Mm.
about that. It already calculates all my tax. Um,
And it
so that's
makes it easier come tax time as well, right?
yeah, yeah, 100%. And I just put all my expenses in there. Like I do once a quarter, I go through and I'd be like, okay, bring everything up to date. That's fine. But it made everything a lot easier. But
Yeah.
yeah, you're not committed to a tool. So like if you find a task manager and everyone else has said, oh, it's fantastic, use it, you'll change your life and you hate it, don't stick with it because everyone
And
works different.
everyone's brain works so differently. I love that you've mentioned that too. Like, I love Trello as a project management tool, and some people are
I
like,
hate
how could
it.
you use it? There you are. And you
Hate
don't
it.
like it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah, exactly. Like even when I started the programs and you're like, oh, recommend Trello as this, I'm like, no, that's not gonna work for me. I'm gonna find something else because that's not how my
Yeah.
brain works. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's something that you can very easily get stuck into a different system and don't
Yeah.
get change.
And it always comes back to that shiny object
Mm,
syndrome, right? It's kind of like, oh, I'll try this and I'll try this. And it's just like the procrastination. It can become overwhelming trying to
yep,
learn all of the different systems. Choose one,
yep,
figure out which one works for you, and then apply it. But I love that the piece of advice really is more around the managing your business and the
mm,
finances. Again, it's something that isn't spoken about.
mm.
And it is a really, really important and crucial part of operating a business and being self-employed for sure.
Yeah. And I think
Yes.
people think it's scary as well. Like it's going to be a concern. Like, if your skill is in marketing or your skill is in behind the scenes admin work, or you may not be across the financial and behind the scenes business management. And it's not that scary, but you do just have to make sure that you do it and you factor it in advance.
Definitely. I've got a
Yeah.
couple of comments here. So what software is that? I believe you use Henry, is that right?
I do. I use Henry. I am probably going to give myself like until the end of this financial year, and I may look at others. But because it's all set and forget, when I was, and one of the things that really appealed to me when I was starting is that I could set it up well in advance. So I had all of my bank account, all that kind of stuff, and it doesn't charge you until you get paid.
Yeah,
So
that's right. It takes out a fee, doesn't it? Yeah.
yeah, it takes out a really small percentage of what you get paid. So when I was starting out, that was really good because if I was only going to get a small amount whilst I was starting, I was only
Yeah.
paying a really small amount. And now that I'm getting paid more than what other systems are going to cost, I'm looking to change
Yes.
at the end of the financial year, maybe, and just do a little bit of research to that next year. But for
Yeah.
now, I'm really happy with what it does. And again, as I said, taking out my super and being able to figure out what percentage I want. So if I want to pay a little bit more, or if I'm really starting out and I'm scraping together my coins, then I can pay a little bit less, but I can figure that out and I don't have to worry about it.
Yes.
Was fantastic for me. Fantastic,
Yeah.
especially when you worry about learning so many other different things. Like if you can automate whatever you can, do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know we've got, with our brand new content, we've got an entire module around business management, risk management, and also systems,
Yeah.
which is really, really great. So
Yeah.
I've got Caitlin, who's another client of mine. Her advice is plan time, plan goals, plan KPIs. Yes, planning is key
Yeah.
for sure. Have a
100%.
direction because business can get tiring. So
Mm.
having that direction is key as well. Now, Teagan, how can we best connect with you? Are we best to
Yeah.
jump on your Instagram? What does that look
Yeah.
like?
Instagram's fantastic. So it's practical.va. You can find me there. If it's got a lot of hot pink in it, then it's me. So that's the
Yay.
best way to find me. And I'm always open for a DM or an email or anything like that. So yeah.
Awesome. And I'll just see if we've got any other questions for myself or Teagan. Let me know in the comments. What I will do, Teagan, I'll drop your Instagram link into these comments so anyone can follow along. And Teagan's inside this community. So if you do have any other questions on the replay, feel free to drop them in the comments section. And yeah, she can reach out to you if you need.
Absolutely. Yay.
All right. I don't see anything else coming through. I appreciate all of your time today, Teagan. What's on for the rest of the day? Client work?
Yeah, client work. Yeah, my Thursdays are my invoicing days, so I've got a lot of client work this afternoon. Yeah, it's gonna be a busy one, but I'm gonna
Yes.
try and get a nice walk outside because you've got that work-life balance.
Yay. We love work-life
Yay.
balance.
Yeah.
All right, love. Thank you so much for your time. Had a ball. I will chat with you
Thank
soon.
you.
And thanks for those that catched us live as well. Appreciate it. See you
My
later.
pleasure.
Bye bye.